There we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mission Motherhood Show, brought to you by Cherie's Choice. We are a nonprofit that helps women navigate their path to motherhood on their own terms. And each week we explore different challenges for women on that path. This is a follow up to a recent podcast that we had called Unwrapping New Possibilities for Motherhood. And I'm excited to welcome back Dr. Susan Fox. She's a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And let me just tell them a little bit about you if they didn't join the other podcast.
Okay,
Dr.
thanks.
Susan is a board certified expert in reproductive health and fertility with over 23 years of experience helping clients conceive, enjoy healthy pregnancy, baby, postpartum, and family. Her online program, Preconception Perfected at Health University, revolutionizes the way women improve their reproductive health, whether desiring natural conception, IVF, or egg freezing. And I love that you call these protocols DIY instead of DIY, and that this
Yes.
isn't something that you have to do yourself, but that this is a very supported journey. And these protocols can be done in the comfort of a woman's home. And acupoint stimulation protocols have shown a 42% increase in live birth rates for women over 35 undergoing frozen embryo transfers. That
Yes.
is an amazing statistic.
It truly is. It truly is. I wish everyone knew this and knew that this was an option, because I think it could improve outcomes for so many who are trying to conceive. Yeah.
Wow. So this journey of being a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, what drew you to this work?
Yeah. Well, it was actually one of those magical, mystical moments in that I was about to get license. I had just received my license, in fact. And so I wanted to commemorate that by saying, okay, we're going to get a little tchotchke, a little something that says I'm no longer a student, I am licensed, and I'm ready to go. And so I drove to this little Tibetan culture house thinking, oh, I'll just get something desktop, and was truly compelled to the back of this shop where there were giant tankas, and I was placed, if you will, in front of one that was Green Tara, who I had come to learn later is the goddess of compassionate healing. And I just started to cry. And I really didn't understand what was happening. But the monk, thankfully, explained to me that, who she was and what she represented. So my little tchotchke took up my entire back seat as I drove away. And again, just to amplify the miracle. And I think we don't talk enough about these kind of things because we all experience them. But once again, I thought I was going to go home, but instead I was compelled to go to this other area and see, well, maybe there's an empty office here. And as it turns out, I will get to a point that it was across the hall from an IVF clinic. And so the women were coming to me saying, will you help me? Can you help me? And again, this is 23 years ago, and it was not as welcomed in the conventional versus. There was truly a versus holistic medicine field. But I decided I just needed to roll up my sleeves to see what, how deep I could go into the process of learning what they were going through so that I could help translate it, so that I could help improve their outcomes. And here again, 23 years later, it's my legacy, it's my mission, and I really want this to continue long after I've left this world.
I love that. And you just sort of happened into a part of that purpose and it drew you in. So, women typically going through infertility make their first stop a fertility clinic. And it's interesting that you were right across from a fertility clinic.
Yes.
But I mean, is that the right approach? Is that the first place that women should go?
Well, it depends, right? Because it depends upon her circumstances. I am not one to say, please come and do 3 to 6 months with me first, because that may not be the right answer. This can be done, my work can be done either as a prerequisite, ideally, if there's time and the circumstances allow, or a co-requisite, because even as if she has already made the phone call to her fertility clinic and even has sort of begun the diagnostic testing and so forth, there's much that we can do to help improve her outcome, because her follicles, her ovaries, her follicles, her eggs are a microcosm of her whole health. And we know this. We know this with every other cell in our being, if you will, but we've kind of been trained to silo our reproductive organs and hormones as only important insofar as our age being the sole determinant of our health. And I just take issue with that, kind of fundamentally. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I've seen the outcomes. I've seen outcomes wherein women have been told, so sorry, donor egg is your only way. So sorry, adoption might be your only way. And they're getting pregnant on their own. And some have gone through IVF, failed, come back and worked with me, and then had successful IVF, because there are reasons sometimes why IVF is the right and possibly the only way to grow a family.
Wow. And
Yeah.
and I mean, so often women, it seems like the medical disciplines within fertility, they don't necessarily look at all the other components. Why is that kind of missing, and how do you work hand in hand with that?
Yeah, well, it's missing because of the system, right? These medical doctors are phenomenal and restricted to what insurance will reimburse. They need to have a reason that would require that they do a test, a follow-up test, and then with the intention of prescribing if that test comes out of range. Whereas I take the approach saying, okay, we know that we are more than our FSH, estradiol, AMH, progesterone, testosterone. We are also our vitamin D. We are also our iron and ferritin. We are also our thyroid and our immune system that way. So I'm taking those tests prophylactically, if you will, so that there's time to make remedies, make inroads before the date of embryo transfer. These days, oftentimes, most people are going through frozen embryo transfer. They're having their eggs retrieved, they're freezing the embryos, and then they're having them tested. So we do have time to make very beneficial improvements. And we know, for instance, low vitamin D, anemia, autoimmune thyroid are implicated in early pregnancy loss. So to go through all of that rigor of
Right.
getting these perfect embryos and not testing these other values is a huge miss in my experience. And I've seen it far too often where, again, these women have come to me after a failed cycle. We do these tests, and lo and behold, we find an explanation and a way to improve their outcomes.
Gotcha. And so we'll get into some of the individual things or
Yeah.
the areas that you look at, but just holistically, can you improve egg quality? I know you're looking at environment. It sounds like a lot of what you're looking at is the woman's kind of environment and their uterus and the functioning of their system to carry a baby. But can you also improve egg quality?
Well, we cannot say that because there's not research to prove it, right? So again, the system. And yet we know that we can improve the quality of our skin, our hair, our vision, our metabolic health. So we can see, for instance, when we make interventions with improvements in lifestyle, appropriate supplementation, we can see, for instance, lower inflammatory markers in the follicular fluid in which that egg is growing. So it kind of stands to reason that that would be then an egg that had better health potential. We can
Wow.
improve the quality of the amniotic fluid and the placental tissue by removing these harmful either estrogen mimiccing hormone disruptors or pesticides or microplastics. We now see that there is a particular probiotic that has been shown to bind to and excrete microplastics. And we, again, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we were kind of on our heels thinking, oh my goodness, now we're seeing all of this invasion into our bloodstream. What do we do about it? So there are things that we can do about it. And our bodies are so brilliant at healing.
Wow.
When we remove the insults, they're going to work better.
That's amazing. And so, I mean, all of these, we think again of infertility as something that's age related, but in your practice, are you seeing these things impact younger women as well.
Of course,
Correct.
of course, yep. And more younger women are being encouraged to do their egg freezing because there is this presumption of this trend toward increasing infertility. And again, that's a cohort that I would say, please, you have time to clean it up. If you just left, your college years of beer and pizza and, all night long, partying in the streets, let's take that few months so that we can really improve the environment of your whole body, your detoxification systems, and then therefore we'll see those changes, improvements in your follicle health.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things you say on your website that I love is you say, if you've searched Dr. Google and purchased enough supplements to require a kitchen remodel, then you've come to the right place.
Yeah.
Do you find that women tend to self-diagnose before seeking help?
Unfortunately, yes. And again, in this world of information overload and many well-meaning friends or family members saying, oh, I did this and got pregnant, the desperation, the existential crisis experience is there such that she's going to try everything. And I respect that she wants to try everything, but everything is not what she needs. Some things are what she needs. And so working with someone who actually is trained, and regrettably, many people out there in the world of IVF support or fertility support are well-meaning, but not necessarily trained. So please, 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 if you're listening, do a little vetting to make sure that it's not just someone who wants to, out of the goodness of his or her heart, be supporting your fertility, but who can support your fertility.
Right. And I would think there.
Go ahead.
No, I would just think that there's this hope, maybe a prayer that we can resolve it on ourselves, because it can be painful to admit if there are issues and things like that. But I think you're right. Having someone who has expertise in these matters can really help accelerate progress, I would think.
Absolutely. And if I may, I want to just speak to a little bit of a schism that has happened in this last year or more with regard to conventional medicine, IVF, and it's kind of returned a little bit to a versus holistic medicine. And, some of it is coming sort of from the top down in terms of, well, we won't pay for IVF for our armed services, but we will pay for, quote, restorative reproductive medicine. And that has put, the IVF doctors a bit on their heels and in a lather, and appropriately so, because it is not the only solution. It is, I'll say this always, it's not an either or, it's a both and that's going to get you the results you want, because you don't just want a positive pregnancy test. Those docs, bless them, can only take those eggs out, stimulate them in the health that they are in, can only take them out, retrieve them in the health that they are in, can only make embryos within the health that the egg and the sperm is in, and transfer it to a uterine environment in the health that it is in. So wouldn't you want to improve your whole health and your fertile health?
So we should think of some of the work you do in this restorative vein?
Yes, I mean, it truly is. Again, our bodies want to restore, right? If we've gone out of balance, if we've gotten ill with a virus, right, our bodies want to clear that so that we can restore our immune health. The same is true for any aspect of our health and wellness and physiology and hormonal health, including fertility.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so one of the things you say is the primary service you offer is listening.
Yeah.
Why is that so important to make an informed diagnosis and treatment plan?
Well, if I listen hard enough, and then that person is usually going to tell me, if I'm really asking enough questions about her whole health history, menstrual health history, sort of other life circumstances that might be at play, including, a very stressful job, a sick parent, a sick child, if they're trying to have, a second or third child. All of these things wouldn't get taken into account in your IVF clinic, because again, their protocols are very specific about stimming, retrieving, and creating embryos. But I can take those questions and those answers and turn it into programs and protocols that can really help improve one's whole health, including emotional health, and reproductive health.
Wow. It's amazing how all these things are interconnected. And I don't know if when I was in a fertility clinic, if the doctor did a lot of listening. I think they did a lot of instructing, but not a lot of
Yes,
listening.
yes,
So
yes. And that's their training. Again, I really don't, I never, ever, ever want to criticize these docs. They're doing
no.
a magnificent job, but their job, their training is to, you know, diagnose and treat the diagnosis. My approach is to look at the pattern that created the then called diagnosis and make the changes that will shift that pattern back into homeostasis so that she can have better outcomes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I know you touched upon this. We've talked about the fact that toxins are all around us,
Mhm.
especially in women's products. I did research on this recently. You inspired me to do that research. Makeup, perfume, shampoos, conditioners. How do these toxins disrupt a woman's fertility?
Well, many of them have preservatives or binders or fillers that are estrogen mimicking or hormone mimicking activity. So we sort of brush our teeth with something that is, you know, kind of maybe loaded with, I don't know, a plasticizer. Maybe we don't brush our teeth with a plasticizer, but something that is going to preserve it, and that's going to get directly into our bloodstream. And if it is an estrogen mimicking particle, then that will sit on the receptor site that is looking for estrogen, and the estrogen then doesn't get to sit on it. Only one receptor site per receptor.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so that is going to then disrupt the return signaling, the sort of the feedback signaling to the pituitary, saying, "Hey, we don't need more estrogen. No need to stimulate these follicles. We got plenty of estrogen. Look at all the estrogen that seems to be in the body." So when we can clear these things with proper detoxification, methylation, elimination, then we're going to see, actually we do need better estrogen. The pituitary will start to signal follicular stimulating hormone, and then those follicles will respond in kind and then produce the estrogen that we need for getting ready for an implantation.
Wow. And so you talk about gentle detox.
Yes.
What does that, because detox can kind of seem scary
Yes. Yes. Well, and
sometimes.
some people, I don't think that the people who come to me are that sick, right? They're struggling with fertility, and I actually also challenge the word infertility a lot, because most of these people are just subfertile. They're not infertile.
Yeah.
So I really like, and we are languaging beings, and what we tell ourselves, our bodies will respond to. So let's change that language if we can, that there's a subfertility crisis, not an infertility crisis. And then I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
Well, we were talking about
Oh,
gentle
a
detox.
gentle detox. Yes. So sometimes people are having to go through, IV detoxification. They're only sort of eating very limited and specific foods if they have a mold issue or, an Epstein-Barr issue or a Lyme issue. Those are not my people. I want my people to be eating food, whole food. And when I say whole food, I mean not processed food. Sure. Then we add to that a very simple protocol. It's a protein powder that has some detox herbs like milk thistle, dandelion root, etc. It has B vitamins, the family of B vitamins that help with the methylation process, and it's truly a scoop a day. So it's gently helping the liver open up. It's gently helping the colon to kind of take that waste and move it on out.
Wow. Okay. And how, there's all this conversation about organic fruits and vegetables versus non-organic. What is your thought on that?
I am camp organic, and because we know that pesticides again exist in placental tissue. And so, why would you not want to give your child in utero the best chance of being toxin free? The pesticides are known to be neuroendocrine disruptors. So their brain health, that's the first thing that's growing. So again, you want to attend to this now. And really, I've had pushback, if you will, saying, but it's so expensive. These days, it's not. You do not have to go to a local farmer's market, 3 times a week. You can go to a big box store. Heck, you can have it delivered to your door, flash frozen organic vegetables in a big old sack. And the price per serving is going to be probably not much different than what you're paying. And you don't need as much food because you're getting nutrition. The purpose of the food is to provide nutrition to our bodies. And you're going to get more bang for your buck, literally, in nutrition. So I am big on pesticide-free, organic. I'm also big on, hormone-free, grass-fed, grass-finished, wild-caught, all of these things. And you'll feel better. You'll feel the difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you were talking about that supplement to
Yes.
rid the body of microplastics. Do you want to
Yes.
share anything more about that? Is that something
Sure.
women can get through you?
They can get it through me, and I had the scientist who is the founder of this company called Winnow, WINNOW, on a webcast myself, because I was just so excited about the process. And he is the father of 2 young girls, and as a scientist, an environmental scientist, realized I have the means, I have the knowledge to go do this research and find something. And so he, with a colleague, was able to put together some strains of probiotic, naturally occurring, these are not synthetic, that have been shown to stick to microplastics in the gut so that you can get rid of them. Because if
Wow.
you don't get rid of them when they're in the gut, they're going to chafe the gut lining, create an opportunity for molecules that should be too big to get into the bloodstream, including these microplastics. The immune system is going to say, uh-oh, we've got something in here that shouldn't be here, and it will look for the invader, and oftentimes misinterpret our own tissue, autoimmune, for that invader. And so that's the setup for an autoimmune thyroiditis, colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
I'm learning a lot more even in this
Yeah.
conversation. So let's see, I wanted to find out, our emotional state too can impact our fertility. You've touched on this, but if we're feeling stressed or if we've experienced a previous loss, how does that play a part in our ability to conceive?
Yeah. Well, I mean, our emotional distress is going to secrete stress hormones, cortisol, which then secretes insulin, because the cortisol is releasing too much blood sugar into the body to fight or flee the saber-toothed tiger. And so if we can help to prevent, no, I shouldn't say prevent, because we can't ignore stress. We live in stress, and stress sometimes is actually what I call eustress. It helps us grow. If we didn't have stress, we would still be maybe crawling around on all fours, right? We need the stress of, I'm going to get up and fall down and get up and fall down. But we get resilience when we practice in advance how we can relate to stress. So if we're doing some of these practices in advance, and in my course, we do have a series of 5 modules of mind-body guided imagery that tell a woman where she is in her menstrual cycle, because it goes through the 5 phases of a 4-week menstrual cycle. And then it really helps connect her mind body to what's happening in her body, because so often we're so disconnected from what's happening within our menstrual cycle. And that alone is so grounding, so satisfying to have agency over, like, I know what's going on in my body today, and I can do something about it to support that.
Wow. And do you deal with emotional regulation? Because of course, not all stress is the same. I mean, the stress of escaping a predator and the stress of preparing for a birthday party or a Christmas dinner are kind of different kinds of stress.
Well, it's
So
interesting. They are different, and yet we are rather primitive, right? Our primal brain is
right, they see it the
designed
same.
to respond the same, whether or not we are, running for our lives, or whether or not we've hit too many red lights and we're running late for our next appointment. So whether it really is about, again, practicing, like remembering that we can take that deep breath. Maybe what we do is we set our phone, to, once every hour or 2 hours, with a little chime that says, am I breathing? And then we take a deep breath. And this kind of helps, like, prevent our reactivity. We in Chinese medicine use 5 emotions that we look to help understand which organ system is being the most affected. So for instance, if somebody is more prone to anger and irritability, we would say then her liver system is more affected. This desire to smoothly create and walk through life is being suppressed, repressed, oppressed, and she's wanting to, kind of push that out. So she would be the person who would say, okay, let's shake it off. Let's have a dance party in your living room. Let's support your actual liver with more sour foods. Whereas somebody who maybe is more grief stricken, is more collapsed and deficient, she needs to actually be fortified. That's somebody for whom, the slow breath practices, more yogic or Tai Chi or Qigong breath practices are really restorative. And I won't go into all five because I don't want to take up too much time, but that's just an example of how we look at how our emotions are a key, a portal to helping us regulate and gain resilience.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thanks. Yeah.
The depth of what you offer there. And so you actually provide fertility assessments for
Yes.
women. Is there a specific age at which you would recommend something like that if you're being proactive?
I would say 27 would be my super, like unless there was something that was showing up in their menstrual history, then earlier is also fine. But by about 27, a person has an understanding of her cycle, whether or not she needs any help or support. She has an idea as to whether or not she might want to become a mother, and so we kind of that gives us plenty of time in the arc of reproductive health and fertility and pregnancy, whereas we used to see pregnancies at 18, 19, 20, now it's in the late 20s to early 30s or early to early 40s. So if we can sort of identify early with assessment, with labs, with kind of more conversation, we can make interventions that are going to make a big difference.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know that we're both very passionate about fertility and education, but you started this health university.
Yes.
So can you tell us more about that resource?
Yes, I'm sorry. Are you hearing noise in the background? Because
Just a little bit, but
okay,
not too much.
there happens to be apparently window washing going on next door.
Oh, wow.
So, and my apologies, they're up on the roof. So Health University, I founded Health University as a way to reach people who couldn't get into my office. The need is far greater than those who are in my zip code. And much of what I do is kind of a rinse and repeat, right? I mean, it's about teaching the principles of proper nutrition, hydration, movement, targeted movement, and that's the T's, the transcutaneous electrical acupoint stimulation that I'd love to touch on because it really is the sweet sauce, I think, in the program. And then things like sleep-wake cycles and emotional regulation. So we've got this all in one that a person has access to for 120 days, and she can extend that access beyond, which is the arc of folliculogenesis. That 120 days is the time frame from which her egg is coming from its potential, it's called the primordial pool, to ovulation, to the antral follicle stage where she's going to ovulate that egg that month. If we can have input and beneficial input over that arc of time, we are really improving her outcomes all the way through, but especially to that 120-day mark.
Are they coming to get you?
Well, there happens to now be water pouring down this window, so I'm so sorry, and sorry, listeners,
No.
if you're hearing this as well.
It's not bad. Okay, so tell us, you touched upon this acupoint stimulation.
Yes. So acupuncture, right, is acupoint stimulation using needles, but we can get there without needles. So this is the DIY. We use a TENS machine. That stands for transcutaneous electrical neuromuscular stimulation, often used for PT. If someone injures their shoulder or back or knee or something, they'll use that device to like drive blood flow to the injured area. Well, similarly, we are using it on acupuncture points and protocols that are designed to increase blood flow to the ovaries and uterus. So those organs are healthier to receive the hormonal signaling either from their own pituitary, from their own brain in a natural cycle, or from the meds if they're going through egg freezing or IVF. And the outcomes are just phenomenal.
There's so much that goes into it. And I know you provide continuing education too. You have your blog, your podcast, to talk about all these different aspects.
Yes.
We'll include this in the show notes, but do you
Thank
want
you.
to share anything about, what those resources are?
Sure. My podcast is available on all the podcast channels, and it's also available on YouTube if you wanted to do, to visually see the conversation, where I bring in experts throughout the field of fertility, pregnancy, and perimenopause, more fertility. But because we are on that bridge, and sometimes we are one step into the next phase of our hormonal life cycle, I really do like to include all of it as much as I can. So it's healthuniversity.co, and university is spelled Y-O-U. So it's health,
Right.
Y-O-U,
University. Yes.
because it is the university of your health. So,
Right.
yep. And then the website is healthuniversity.co, within which there is a free 5-element fertility assessment quiz, and you will receive reports based upon your answers, that your answers indicate you fall into this one of the 5 elements, and here are some solutions for you. Obviously, it is not the course, but it's going to give you some idea as to what changes you can make immediately to start making improvements. And then we have the fertility assessment, because while this course is appropriate for most, it's not appropriate for everyone. So if, for instance, one has an electric device implanted in their body, well, we don't want to be running electricity through their
Sure.
body. So
Sure.
we
Sure.
would take that module out, and try and find other ways to stimulate those points. If someone has a proliferative disease such as cancer, again, we don't want to stimulate those cells. So we want to be mindful. That's why I ask people to call me first. We have a 10-minute conversation, and then we can kind of send you on your way into the course or otherwise.
And do you work with clients that are, I know you're in the Bay Area, if I remember.
Yes.
Do you work with clients outside of the Bay Area though as well?
I do. I am able to work with people as a doctor of Chinese medicine inside the state of California. So
Okay.
I can do virtual work, and that would be like a hybrid of virtual, consultation with the course, because again, I don't want people spending hours trying to come for an acupuncture appointment when they can do it at home. Outside the state of California, I also have my health and wellness coaching certificate, and it's an entirely different company that owns that Health University and the preconception plan. So that is why I'm able to help people outside the state because
Perfect.
I'm not
Well,
operating within my license.
yeah. And I mean, ladies, if you're hearing this, there's just so much that goes into our fertility that if you are struggling to get pregnant, if you have irregular periods or things like that, it's just so important to look at this from a holistic perspective and really see what you can do to optimize your fertility. So I thank you so much for the work that you are doing. I mean, I'm just blown away by all the elements of it that you are trying to tackle and help women. It's just very inspiring to me. So I
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank you
much.
so
And
much for having me and giving me the forum to talk about it, because it's so, so, so important. And we do have the agency to make fundamental, profound changes to our whole health and our fertile health. And that's the future, right? We're creating the future. When we create healthy babies and healthy communities, these are future leaders who will be able to make healthier decisions on behalf of all.
that is true. And I know how passionate you are about that. I'm going to include all the information about Dr. Susan's resources. And I want to thank all of you for joining in. We will be sharing those resources on Cherie's Choice. And again, this is a place where you can find education that will help you navigate your path to motherhood and see if there are some solutions for you. And again, I just want to leave you with this thought. Um, you can fulfill your dream of motherhood with knowledge, determination, courage, and a village that loves you. Anything is possible. So we thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.